Welcome to Living in Asheville channel. I know this is a Super Bowl Sunday, but this topic is very important and I've been meaning to make a video about it, but instead I decided to go ahead and go live and answer questions. If anybody's going to be joining me live, you can drop your questions, comments about this topic at any point. Also, if you are joining from anywhere, whether it's Asheville, North Carolina, different states, different countries, go ahead and put it in the comments where you're joining from. It's always great to connect with people live, which is why I wanted to go live. I think the last time I went live here on this channel was about a year ago. And I really want to come back to doing it more regularly. And so it's a better chance to connect without having to call, text, email, make appointments, all this stuff. Let's just cut through that and connect here. Although I realize it's Sunday and it is a Super Bowl Sunday. Anyways, today I wanted to talk about the state of short-term rentals, also known as AIRBNBs in the Asheville area. I know it's been a hot topic for a while, and finally we are at a point where some decisions can be made that will not be in favor of short-term rental industry in general in the Asheville area. And I'm not just talking about the city of Asheville, I'm talking about Buncombe County, which from what I heard has never been done before, or somebody tried and then they were sued. And they lifted the restrictions. Usually it's cities or towns make restrictions across the board in terms of how short-term rentals are being operated and how they work in that area, in that city. Here we're talking about having severe restrictions across the board in Buncombe County. So as a reminder, Buncombe County consists of Asheville, of course. The Asheville city is right in the middle. And then cities and towns like Black Mountain, Riverville, Arden, some parts of Fletcher, Swannanoa, and those are small towns, Candler, all those areas, all those little towns will be affected by proposed restrictions to short-term rentals. So this is how it kind of started. I'm just going to go back a little bit, a few years back. Asheville, of course, has always been a tourist destination. Not always, but for many, many years. In fact, TDA, which is Tourism Development Authority, was established almost 40 years ago. It was established the year I was born. And it was responsible for reviving the tourism industry and reviving the city of Asheville, because it was in bad shape 40 years ago. Anyways, so the tourism developed, and Asheville for the past few decades has been known as a destination city, as a tourism attraction. There's a lot of things to do here for locals and tourists. So TDA spends a lot of money, which a lot of people are not happy about. But basically it did its job, right? It attracted a lot of people to the area, a lot of small businesses, a lot of galleries, countless galleries that we have here in Asheville, a lot of restaurants, breweries, stores, all kinds of small businesses only exist and are only able to be supported because of tourists. I mean, I don't know how many breweries a local can support at a time. We have so many breweries, not just in Asheville, but in Buncombe County, in other counties. And so, so that's been great. And there's, of course, can be a little too much of a good thing, so to speak. And a lot of people are unhappy because of the tourism industry has been thriving, but then they say, well, what about the infrastructure and the locals and communities and stuff like that? Although TDA spends a lot of money on and puts a lot of money into local stuff as well, local communities. So tourism is thriving, and then COVID, probably shouldn't say that on YouTube, pandemic hit, right? Pandemic hit 2020, and all of a sudden tourism industry just got dead. A lot of businesses shut down, restaurants were suffering, all that stuff. We all know about that. And then schools went virtual. A lot of people went virtual. They didn't have to go to work. They could work anywhere in the world as long as they had internet. So a lot of people still wanted to travel, but they didn't want to stay at hotels. So they preferred, of course, Airbnbs, because they could just rent the whole house for themselves and not be in contact with anybody else. And the Airbnb industry, short-term rental industry, was in huge demand. They were like, everyone who had Airbnbs in 2020, 2021 were booked. It was a very successful year. It's like a few years. And of course, with that, a lot of other people who didn't have Airbnbs yet rushed to buy more Airbnbs because it was such a profitable business. And, 2-3 years down the road, we see oversaturation with Airbnbs, oversaturation with short-term rentals in the area, because everyone and their father and cousin bought an Airbnb or converted one of their properties or converted part of their house into short-term rental. And that started, affecting local communities. A lot of people got, unhappy with the fact that instead of having their little street, their little cul-de-sac, their little community full of neighbors, people who they know, all of a sudden they start having people coming and going. They didn't know who it was, stuff like that. And that seems to be, what caused a lot of frustration with locals, and a lot of complaints start happening to the county level, to the city level. And so, recently, this is what happened. Buncombe County Planning Board considered several text amendments that would put severe restrictions on short-term rentals. And they had a couple of hearings already. One of them I actually attended personally. Happened it was a weird meeting, because we were allowed into this room, and then that room got overcrowded, and the fire marshal said no more people, and a lot of people who were not able to get into the room were very upset, because it was a public hearing and public was supposed to be able to voice their opinion on the matter. And the Buncombe County Planning Board acted like they didn't expect that so many people would show up to speak against those restrictions. And so they had a few people speak up, and some people speak for those restrictions, but most people spoke against the restrictions. Then, they decided, because not everyone was able to come in and speak up and voice their opinion, they were going to hold another meeting, another planning meeting, where they would, hold it in a bigger place, in a bigger facility, and more people, or everyone who is interested in voicing their opinion, would be able to come in and speak up. And there were quite a few restrictions that were proposed and that they were reading, but basically everything boiled down to the fact that what they proposed is restricting short-term rentals to commercial zoning districts, only allowing short-term rentals in other districts if they apply for a permit to continue as a legal non-conforming use, lower maximum gross floor area for short-term rentals, and prohibiting the transfer of the right to short-term rental when a property is sold. So, most 99% of short-term rentals in the Asheville area are located that number might not be accurate, but most short-term rentals are not located in commercial district, in commercial zoning. They are located in residential areas of Buncombe County. So proposing that would definitely kill short-term rentals, and will only basically leave place for hotels and places like that, more commercial type of areas. Then another proposal was to restrict the short-term rental use only to the current owner. So in other words, if you were to sell to another individual, that next buyer, next owner will not be able to continue use this property as a short-term rental. And it just caused a lot of stir and a lot of frustration on people who have property managers who have a big portfolio. They have a lot of properties they manage, individual homeowners who have a short-term rental as a mean of extra income, because we all know that Asheville is not the cheapest place to live. The cost of living is pretty high. I mean, there was one father who came and spoke against the restrictions, saying he was, a father of 5 kids, 4 or 5 kids, or 6 kids, or something like that, and having that extra income, extra stream of income really helps them feed their kids, dress their kids, send them to school, stuff like that, just basic needs, nothing extraordinary. But so that's a struggle between people who are not big corporations, small investors, or people who just have 1 or 2 extra properties who are trying to make extra income by running short-term rentals. And then on the opposite side, people who are saying that, and one of the arguments against short-term rentals is that they negatively impact the cost of living and the housing prices. They say that affordable housing is non-existent because of short-term rentals, which I think it's kind of like a scapegoat. They're trying to just point the finger at one thing without considering other things. Like, for example, Asheville permit department. That's a nightmare. And how many hoops you have to jump through to have anything done if you're a small developer or if you're just a builder. It's crazy. And the opposition, so to speak, who spoke against the restrictions, brought a study, and I can link it up in the description of this video, that talks about how only 3% of all houses in the area are short-term rentals, and how most of those 3% are not even in the median sales price. They are luxury short-term rentals. I'm talking about properties that sleep, you probably see on Airbnb, sleep 20, 24. They have 6 bedrooms. They are $1 million plus properties. So those are not the properties that small investors are taking off the market and taking away from lower income buyers who cannot afford, to win a bidding war, let's say. So, all those things were being heard from both sides by Buncombe County Planning Board. And there's going to be another meeting at the end of this month, I believe, where I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen, but I plan to attend. And, if those restrictions do go in place, they will have a devastating effect on the local economy, because the local economy does rely on tourism. Airbnbs, short-term rentals in the area provide a ton of jobs for locals, for people who actually live here. And one of the people who spoke against short-term rentals said something along the lines that, I work all day, every day, and I don't even make minimum wage. If you're telling me that those workers, those cleaners, those whoever services short-term rentals make more than $22 an hour, well, that's great for them. And I thought, well, yes, they actually do make quite a lot of money on just cleaning houses. And a lot of people are employed by short-term rentals, short-term rental owners, property managers to clean those properties. If you ever run a short-term rental, you know that finding a reliable cleaner is the biggest pain in the neck when it comes to running short-term rentals. So you have to have plan A, plan B, and you have to pay these people good money, because otherwise they're not going to be good. They will be sloppy, you will have bad reviews, and on and on and on. But not just cleaners. We have 2 short-term rentals here in the area, and I feel like our cleaners make more money than we do sometimes. But they clean those properties a lot, depending on the turnaround and the season. But not just cleaners. Service people, HVAC, something happens to HVAC, something happens to plumbing, you have to, and that happens more often than with properties, or can happen more often than with properties where you live, because, things can happen. Landscape, lawn services, we have somebody who is mowing our yard, who is mulching, who is kind of looking out after the exterior. So all these people are getting paid, and they are right here in the area. They're not somebody offshore, they're not somebody, online, they're right here in the area. So what I'm seeing now also is that a lot of short-term rentals coming back to the market. So we have this huge influx of, first of all, people coming to the area and occupying those short-term rentals. Then we had a huge influx of short-term rentals. So there was even more competition among short-term rentals, because there's been so many of them. Everyone decided to be a short-term rental owner and make all the money. But now, because of oversaturation, and pandemic is over, people are not traveling that much anymore. People are not spending time here locally. I see and hear so many people going to Europe, going abroad to other countries, because now they can. They're not spending as much time here as they used to during pandemic. So that caused a lot of owners who bought those short-term rentals during pandemic and during 2021, 2022, I see all these properties back on the market. And honestly, the numbers don't work. The numbers don't make sense, because of course they are trying to sell them for more money than what they bought them for, because looking at the market still moved. And let's say it's 10-15%, right, increase in the median sales price, and they kind of apply it to their property. But when a savvy investor, or if your realtor knows a little bit about what they do, about short-term rentals, they would tell you, like, if, looking at the numbers, and I'm talking about rental income and the price of the property, does it make sense? Does it make financial sense? And most of the time these days, it does not. It does not make any sense to buy this overpriced short-term rental with rental history, all furnished. I'm talking about, it's plug and play, right? It sounds great on paper. actually, it doesn't even sound great on paper. When you start looking into it, the numbers just don't work. And these people are trying to sell these properties, and they're not selling. They're not selling. But before you decide whether or not this is the area for you to invest your money in, think twice. Be very cautious. And, because of these restrictions, we don't know what's going to happen, but what if they do implement all these restrictions? Then what? Again, it's going to be a devastating effect on the local community, on the local economy. And I'm sure there will be a lawsuit and blah, 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 but it's going to take time, first of all. And who knows how long that's going to take to reverse it. So it can be a risky investment right now, right in 2024, until we have a clear picture of what actually is going to happen. Until then, I invite you to kind of think out of the box, as well as look at other areas. There are other counties right around Asheville, right around Buncombe County, that don't have as many short-term rentals. In fact, they don't even have as many accommodations for tourists, like Brevard, 50 minutes away from Asheville. It's about southwest of Asheville. And, it's a great area for any outdoor lover. Anybody who loves to be outdoors would love it there, because there's a Pisgah National Forest, DuPont State Park, tons of trails for biking, hiking, over 200 waterfalls in Brevard, and there's not nearly enough accommodations. So maybe having a short-term rental there would be a better idea, and that's a completely different county, and they are allowed. Also, doesn't matter which county you're looking in, which city, everything can be reversed. Everything, individual neighborhoods, individual little towns can put restrictions on short-term rentals. That happened just here recently in the Asheville area. Woodfin banned short-term rentals from then on, and that happened last year. I think they were allowed, and now no more. Everyone who is running them at that time, were allowed to continue, but nobody new could come in and start a short-term rentals in Woodfin. Woodfin is a small little area between Asheville and Weaverville, just north of Asheville. A lot of neighborhoods, or I shouldn't say a lot, but a number of neighborhoods that allowed short-term rentals banned them, because again, residents, long-term residents there, full-time residents there, just had enough, and they had a board meeting and said no more short-term rentals. And so, just kind of be cautious. Any place, especially the places that have HOAs, have associations, have restrictions, and have the power to implement some restrictions or have an amendment to their covenants and restrictions, they have a power to reverse anything that's happening. If most people become unhappy with what's happening, they will come together and ban those rentals. So be extra cautious with, places like, places that have associations, places that have covenants and restrictions, but also be very careful in Buncombe County. And I just posted that video about mega treehouse rentals that are being up for sale right now in Asheville, North Asheville. They are not in residential zoning. They are not part of residential zoning, so that's kind of, great. They're selling right now for $20 million. There are 7 current short-term rentals that are, they are tree houses that are being used as short-term rentals. Last year, they generated $1 million in gross revenue. So $1 million gross revenue means they probably generated, I want to say maybe $650,000 in net. net income, if you consider property management, cleaning fees, that's easily 30%, if not more. Maintenance, any kind of maintenance. But they're adding 13 more units to that plate, to the whole place. And considering those 7 plus 13, they estimated $20 million for that whole place. The Tree Houses of Serenity is what it's called. It sits on top of the mountain with amazing views from each and every cabin. I covered everything in my previous video. If you want to check it out, I'm going to put it in the description. And, makes you wonder why people are selling those properties, right? Some people just want to cash out. Some people are afraid the restrictions will be too harsh and they want to get out of it before it's too late. But some people really haven't been seeing that good of return on their investment. And that, of course, because of various different factors. It can be management. Maybe a lot of people manage them themselves, which I think is a big mistake. Well, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say it's a big mistake. When we started with 2 properties, we managed, my husband managed them himself. He wanted to kind of learn all the ins and outs, everything about this process, everything about this business. But then, it's been just taking too much time. We hired a property manager. Yes, we are paying 20% to him, but he is paying for himself. Basically, we're making even more money with him than we were before without him. And we're not spending our time. And time is even more valuable than money. So, if you want to run this as a hobby, then of course do it by yourself, but property manager is the way to go, especially a good one that can make you more money and can save you time. Again, time is more valuable than money. And so if you are thinking about investing in short-term rental in the area, like I said, there are plenty of other areas, locations outside of Buncombe County that will be a great fit for something like this. But also, if you're talking to somebody else, to a different realtor, and they're not mentioning these restrictions that are coming up, it's like a big elephant in the room, I'm telling you. Red flag, red flag. Every realtor should be mentioning this to everyone they're working with, because this is a big deal. And if you have any questions, I know I talked a lot about all kinds of stuff. If you need help navigating this market, whether you're an investor or just thinking about, some people are moving to the area, right? Like a year, 2 years from now, but they want to buy a house now before the prices go up in 2 years. In the meantime, they're thinking, well, we're not here yet, we can just rent it out. And short-term rental is the most profitable way to go. Just kind of make sure you know what can happen, what might happen, and what kind of risk you are getting into or having when buying a short-term rental. Again, reach out to me and my team if you have any questions about whether, relocating to the Asheville area, investing in the Asheville area and surrounding areas. Reach out to me and my team. We helped quite a few investors over the years to buy and sell their short-term rentals here in the area. Our contact information is going to be down in the description once this live ends, and I will see you next time.